My name is Nancy Loughborough Walker, and I came to Woodmen Circle when I was 9 years old in 1952 and lived here until I graduated from high school in 1960.
And I came here in 1948, right after my 12th birthday.
I was here in 1955 when I was 3 years old.
I am the great-grandson of Mary Eugenia LaRocca, and she was the president of the Woodmen Circle when this home was built. And she and Dora Alexander Talley were the two people most responsible for building the home. And Dora Talley was the one who had the idea to have it here in Texas, and my great-grandmother was the one that raised the funds. And Woodmen Circle, just to give a little background, was a fraternal organization, and the idea was that people would do things together almost in a social, civic type of way, like a Lions Club or a Women's Club, but also had the purpose of selling insurance.
It offered a place for elderly women and orphans at a time when we didn't have assisted livings on every corner and foster care didn't exist. So initially, insurance companies wouldn't even offer life insurance on the life of a woman. Her life was considered to have no value. So women decided that that was not appropriate, and there are pictures of them in 1890, 1900 in their little buggies driving from farm to farm to sell insurance policies to other women. The policy guaranteed that if they died, it would pay out like a normal policy to their relatives, or if their husband had died, they could move to this facility and live for the rest of their lives and be cared for. Or if they and their husband were both dead and they had minor children, the children could come here and be cared for until they graduated from high school. So the concept was unique. The women who planned this to be one of 3 facilities. They opened the Sherman facility first, and then because of the Depression, the other 2 never happened. So this was meant to be a footprint and a model that would be duplicated as a nationwide service, and that didn't happen. So we are unique in that this location was picked. We are unique in that it is the only one. It was the only place at the time that combined both ends of the spectrum, both the young and the old, in one basically gigantic farm family. And once I walked through it the first time, I have been on the quest for its history. I am just fascinated by the 100 children who grew up here, by the 165 women whose lives ended here or who were touched by it in the later years of their lives, and by the memories and the personal connection that all of those people seem to have felt with this structure and what it meant in their lives.
For me, it was like a family, a real family, with the exception that our names weren't the same. And I never referred to Missy and Mr. and Mrs. Alexander. I never referred to them as mom or dad, but I felt like they were. You know what I mean? And as an example of that, each summer we would have a vacation, a driving vacation somewhere not too far away. I mean, we didn't go to Washington, D.C., but 4 days a week, maybe down in Galveston one summer. Another summer we went to Carlsbad Caverns and froze to death. I didn't realize it was going to be so cold in those caves. Another year we went down to the Alamo in San Antonio and saw the battleship Texas. A lot of fond memories, real family memories that you would associate with your own mom and dad and maybe brother and other sisters in your own families. That's the way it was for me at the Woodmen Circle Home. I would have gotten in trouble with the police, I think. I alternated living between Mineral Wells and Canyon, Texas, and I had very little supervision because my mother was not able to take care of me, and my father was an itinerant laborer who disappeared more than he reappeared. So I was just sort of left free to run. No discipline, except what I imposed on myself, and that was very little. and I knew where I was going if I couldn't get help somewhere. But I thought, that's my ticket out of this downward spiral that I find myself in. So I started praying for that. And when my grandmother offered me her place at the home, I didn't hesitate for 1 second. I took it. And it saved my life.
My mother had purchased an insurance policy on us 3 youngest girls. I have other siblings too. And she died a week and a half later after she paid $2.50 down on this policy. She died, and then people from the home came and picked us up, and they put us on a train in El Paso, and we rode the train to Dallas where Mr. Alexander met us. And he said his name was Mr. Alexander. We could call him Mr. and he would take care of us for the rest of our lives. We were okay. And then he drove us here to Sherman, and we had a huge tree out here, and they had made a corral for our stick horses we brought with us. And they had the real horses there for us to ride, and we just had a wonderful life out here. We were very poor, and to come to a place like this, it would be like going to Disneyland. You know, it was wonderful. Of course, I was upset because my mother had died. My dad had been dead for several years. But just the fact that I was also with 2 of my siblings made it feel okay, and this was just how life was going to be. We had trains we ran down in the basement. We had ping pong tables. We played outside at night till dark till we were tired. Just, you know, your typical life. There were 7 of us kids, and so it wasn't horribly huge or anything like that. And we just grew so accustomed to the largeness of the place that it didn't seem large. It was just home.
In 1955, my mother contracted polio, and her youngest baby contracted it as well. And so we were placed here in the home, my older brother, older sister, and myself. So I was here in 1955 when I was 3 years old. I was here under a year. But even late in Mrs. Alexander's life, my mother cared for her in our home as well, shortly before she passed away. So Mr. and Missy were our grandparents in actuality. So my mother had lived here from the age of 9 to the age of 17, which all orphans had to leave at the age of 17. I think they were given a bus ticket maybe and $75, something like that. So she had her 2 brothers and herself living here. And at the time she stayed in this building, the Pennsylvania building, and her 2 brothers, one older and one younger, lived in the other building. And they would have to sit out here on the street and talk to each other across the street because they weren't allowed to get together without supervision. So they'd holler across the street to one another to visit. I was always happy here, always happy. My sister slept in a room down the hallway with some of the other orphans. My brother slept in the basement with the boys. And then Missy, and since I was the youngest, she would let me sleep with her and Mrs. Alexander, and she would let me wear her slips, which were absolutely beautiful, and would let me sleep with her. And she just loved us. You know, she'd take time out to brush your hair and roll it and just treat you special. She was a lovely person. And I believe she was still giving me Christmas gifts until I turned 21. And I was just a very small part of her life, but every one of us counted. There were over 100, and every one of us counted, and every one of us thought she was our grandmother, you know, or our mother. Well, this room over here was Missy's room, and so I stayed in that room with Missy. This small window here was a little tiny narrow room that Mr. lived in, and he just had a twin bed and a table and starch sheets and everything. He'd sleep there. They were older in life. And then my little sister would sleep in this room with 3 other orphans. And so Occasionally we just sneak in bed with each other and stuff like that. But the girls were upstairs and the boys were in the basement at that particular time.
I'm 65 and I'm the last employee here. My first job was cleaning those windows that's not even there anymore, and I was 13 years old and I got a quarter for doing it, an hour for doing it. I worked here 4 years and I was asked to be married right here. My boyfriend come and got me one time and brought me to work, and he asked me to marry him right there. And the last day that I was leaving here, I was so excited because I was getting to leave Sherman. And I went around and I told the ladies goodbye, but I never knew that once I went down them steps that I would never come back in when it was active. I left Sherman in 69 and I come back in 73 and it shut down in 71. This is history coming alive again. Over 80 years ago, there was 100 men hired to do the work that these men are doing, cleaning up, making the curbs, the driveways, and there was over 6,000 people here that day that they had opening house, and their meal of the day was a barbecue dinner. So see, there's men working again today, and what's going to be the dinner of September the 25th is a barbecue dinner. So see how history repeats itself. It's history not just for Sherman and not for just Grayson County. It's history for America because women put this building together. They didn't build it, but they had the plans for it. So women actually done something, and this was done in the deep depression. So they made a dream come true. So, and I've been out here more times than you can count. I love this place, I really do.